Hello YouTube, welcome to this second injury Q&A. Injury prevention is a critical aspect of bodybuilding because if you get injured, you can't train and you lose muscle. So it's something that I'm going to talk about a lot on this channel, and that's the reason why I made this playlist and this Q&A. Any question you might have that haven't been answered yet in previous Q&As, let me know, I will answer. Let's get to it right now. So, MD asks, or rather says, that he used to have shoulder pain. He started training real delts and the pain went away. But now that the shoulders felt better, he realized that it was probably caused by his trap imbalance, pulling something upwards. And he tells me he gets fatigue in the trap area when walking. And he also tells me that he created the imbalance carrying his backpack in high school. Yes, you did. I did the same thing. My scoliosis came from that for the most part. I don't have a proof, but I'm certain of it. So, you know, when you want to be cool in high school and you carry your backpack on one shoulder, you're creating an imbalance because you have more weight on one side and you're still growing, so your skeleton is not set yet. So you're going to create a scoliosis where there was nothing there. Avoid that. Put your two straps on and carry your backpack like a good old dweeb. It's fine, at least you won't have a crooked back like me and other people. And he's basically telling me, how do you correct that? Because yes, you have a trap that's higher than the other because of your scoliosis. So basically what's going to happen with UMB is that, one, there's two reasons for your trap imbalance. One, it's the structure. As you said, you have scoliosis, so one is higher than the other. Two, you're most likely tensing that trap without realizing it. And that's what most people already do. They're like this all day. They don't realize they're doing a shrug all day because they're so tense. So you really need to focus on, throughout the day, reminding yourself to have that good posture, because structure influences posture and posture influences structure. You need to always remind yourself of getting the shoulders back. The shoulders are always back, they're never shrugged up, and that is already going to help. In terms of correcting exercises, you will never correct the structure. I'm sorry to say that, because now the bones are set, the plates are fused, it's over. That being said, the tightness of the trap you can correct. So what I would say you do is, you don't necessarily have to do unilateral movements for that. It can help. I have found, for example, that if you do weighted stretch with a barbell for your traps, you have the ability with slight modifications of the shoulder angle to have the weight pull on one trap more than the other. And that could be something that you use for two purposes. One, so that one of the two traps that is underdeveloped gets more work and therefore catches up. And two, because weighted stretch, I found, really helps with the tightness of the trap. I used to be just like you, because you tell me that you have knots in your traps. I used to have knots all the time, and those were like big knots in my traps. They hurt a lot. And I started doing weighted stretch and they went away. I haven't had one in 5 or 6 months ever since I really started doing weighted stretch for the traps. And I think I know why. It's because I used to always do movement while the traps were bunched up, like overhead press, or I would do just pulls from the floor, but I was always super tight. And so the traps basically fused together in a sense with the bone. And I think the weighted stretch helps by making the muscle less tight. So it helps with the size because they grow, it helps with the strength, and it also helps with that feeling. And as you say, yes, the traps that is constantly being shrugged is being what you call isometrically loaded, because you're constantly flexing it. If you flex your bicep all day, it would feel tender at some point too. So try what I just advised, and I think you should feel better. Inaki Balmaceda asks, 4 weeks ago I injured my back doing heavy squats and it still bothers me. I cannot do the basics or any effort with my lower back. I think it is low back pain. Basically, it hurts to strain my lower back. What can I do to recover from this? And what exercises for the core could I do preventively? Okay, so your post-injury, the injury happened. It could be one of two things. It could be either that it's a lower back injury, so it's the lumbar spine, or it could be SI joint pain. The vast majority of people who think they have a lower back injury, it's actually the SI joint, because the spine is actually a very, very strong joint. It's really tough to, destroy a disc, like so many people say. Usually it's not that. It's a nerve, it's a muscle, etc. So what I would advise you to do is, you still have the pain. You need to gradually get back into it. So for example, if it hurts in everyday life, I want you to be able to do body weight movements with a manageable level of pain, meaning that you should be able to do good mornings with no weight, squats with no weights. That is also going to send blood in the area. The worst thing you could be doing is to stop moving completely, because the injury is not going to get any better. You need to actually work it. So in terms of recovery, that's what I would say. You can ice it if you manage to get an ice pack. You can use heat. If you have a shower with a good pressure for the jet, put it towards your back and do contrast showers. It can help. Overall, what's going to work for you is to slowly try to get into it. Slowly try to squat and deadlift again. You will find that it's either going to be one or the other. Either squats will feel better than deadlifts, or deadlifts will feel better than squats. Usually the lift that you injure yourself on is the one that feels the worst, but not always. I found that sometimes for some reason it feels fine and the injury carries over to another lift. So you need to find a lower body lift that you can do without pain, and that can be a leg press, that can be a good morning. I doubt that the good morning will be the one. That can be a goblet squat, anything that will allow you to keep working the lower body and get some level of hip hinge. You don't need to do a massive hip hinge, and you don't want to jump into heavy weights again, of course. Once you feel better there, you're going to start lifting with the squat and the deadlift again with low weight. And you're also going to start to implement some exercises for prevention. So what I say for the lower back, and that goes back to the reason why you got injured most likely. What injured you most likely is that you either good morning your squats, or your form has some issue with it where at some point during the lift, you switch the focus and the weight of the squat from the quad to the lower back. So it could be a lower back weakness, it could be a technical weakness. All around, what I would say is, as you start doing squats again, try and rebuild your form. Look at what you're doing, modify the torso angle, find the form that flares up the lower back the least, okay? It's interesting also because a lot of people think that deadlifts are the main culprit for lower back injuries. For the most part, it's squats. And the reason why is because the most dangerous portion of any lower body lift, excluding good mornings, is the bottom portion of the squat, 100%. Meaning that the moment you reverse that negative into the positive is when people get snapped up, always. So pay attention to that. Do pose squats. See what happens when you do pose squats and you push up. How do you feel? How does your back feel? Always with low weight, okay? Don't focus about muscle gains right now. We want to get you active again. So that's one portion of the technical aspect that you can do so that you can prevent it from happening again. The second thing that I would say is you can do certain movements. For example, I think that back hyperextensions are excellent for the lower back. And also you will find that they really help teach you to pull with your legs and push with your legs. In terms of things that can help decompress the spine, I would do a lot of dead hangs if you can. After every workout, do dead hangs. If you have a bar at home, do dead hangs every day. It will help. And for the core, the best thing to prevent the core from falling is to brace properly and have strong abs. And the strong abs you get from the bracing. So if you are looking for exercises to build the core, leg raises, hanging leg raises, planks, crunches on an inclined bench, all of these will build the core. But just so you know, you will not be able to make up for the lower back injury that you have now with stronger abs, at least not in the present. In the future, maybe. Next question. MB again. If I'm deadlifting off of 0.5 inch blocks, will I snap myself up when I decide to pull from the actual floor because potential weaknesses in that initial portion of the run? So that's something that I actually do think can happen and will happen to a lot of people. For example, if you keep doing half reps on the bench and for some reason one day you go full range of motion, that's the moment in time where you have the biggest chance of snapping a pec or a shoulder because you're just not used to that range of motion anymore. So I would say that if you only deadlift off blocks and you suddenly try to deadlift off the floor with heavy weights, yes, you can get injured. That being said, there's a very easy way around it. you do your off the blocks work with your max weight, and you do sub-maximal work off the floor. And I think the reason why you, MB, do that off blocks is because you don't have the mobility and your lower back runs when you do it from the floor. And if that's the case, the good news is that when you do sub-maximal weight, you can employ a technique that is not realistic with heavy weights. So that's what I would advise you to do. But for tall guys out there, for people who don't have the mobility yet to pull from the floor comfortably, don't be ashamed of starting in a rack or from blocks. If you have the possibility to practice on your mobility and eventually pull from the floor, I would advise you to do that. But some people anthropomically cannot pull from the floor, at least not with a conventional style. And for you guys, don't be ashamed, pull from blocks. You have more range of motion like this than most people do from the floor anyways because of your long segments. Shakar Sardar asks, I have one question. I'm facing a little pain in my right hip. At first, I thought it might be deadlift that's causing the problem, so I gave it up and substituted it for barbell, hip thrust, and back arch. I still have some pain when I squat and barbell hip thrust, but it's less than deadlift, what I said before. I'm not sure what exactly the reason is. The pain is not something that prevents me from working out. I can still pretty much deadlift and then recover for next week and do my usual. It's something that worries me. And then he put a video of his deadlift. So you know what? I'm going to check that out. Let's see that form. Okay, form is good. So what I would say is, when you have something like this, it's something that comes back regularly from workout to workout. There's really three things that could happen. There are two that are realistic and one that is not realistic. Number one, you're going to keep working and eventually the pain is just going to go away. And you won't even notice it. Meaning that one day you're training, you'll think, I thought I had pain in this area before, and it'll just be gone. It happens to me all the time. Secondly, the pain will get worse. The good thing with that is that it's not just going to get worse unless you just ego lift like an idiot. It will gradually get worse. It's a sign. The body is sending you a message. It's telling you, hey, you're doing something I don't like. Please stop it. The third thing that is not realistic is the pain will stay there. The body doesn't work like that for the most part. Usually something happens to the pain. So what I would say you do is, you tell me that you feel the pain much more when you do deadlifts. So what we're going to do with you is, you're going to put the deadlift on the side for a while. You can still train the muscles that work the deadlift without doing the deadlift. So let's try and have you do more hip thrust, have you try some good mornings with no weight, with a band if you can, and see how you feel. What we're going to do is, we're going to find the lower body movement that causes the least amount of pain, okay? And you're going to focus on building that up. And you'll find that as the pain decreases on that movement, the second movement on the list also decreases in pain. And then you're going to be able to focus more time on that. The goal is to be able to get you to squat without pain. When that happens, you'll start picking up deadlifts again, and we'll see how you feel. If you can, right off the bat, do it without pain, then great, you'll solve the issue. If you can't, you'll just stick with the same weight while still pushing progression on the squat, hip thrust, and good mornings, and see where it gets you. What I would say is, you seem to have a very high amount of self-awareness because you caught the pain early on. Some people would have ignored it. So that's a good sign. It's a sign that you're in tune with your body already. And most likely it's normal that the pain is present on every single lower body lift because it's some hip pain. What I would say also is, stretch your hips. Look at hip stretches. There's a chance that your hips are just tight, and that's what's creating the pain. I used to have that all the time. Look at the stretches. I would advise to do the stretches when you're warm, not when you're cold. The hips are fragile. Don't jump into a heavy stretch and snap something. After your workouts, stretch the hips. And if it doesn't feel better after a while, get back to me and we'll continue working on that. But your deadlift form is good. Maurice Cooper asks, how long would it take an ankle injury to recover depending on how bad it is? So the ankle is a little bit special. It's sort of like the knees but worse, because if you're heavy okay? A small ankle injury could just never recover. It's quite common with people who are overweight they just roll their ankle and it lasts 6 months. It's the reason why is because the body weight that they have is too heavy for their ankle. So they keep putting strain on it every day and it never gets a chance to recover. So with ankle injuries, usually you want to avoid high impact sports. So anything like basketball, running, you want to avoid that. You will find that it's super rare to injure yourself and actually hurt your ankles when you do something like squats or deadlifts. I've never heard that happening. That being said, if it's already hurt, the pain is going to be there when you put weight on it. So squats and deadlifts are going to be complicated. For ankle injuries, I highly recommend icing it 3 to 4 times a day for 15 minutes. When you ice a joint, you wait the same amount of time after it's iced without moving, so that you can let the body part put some blood flow in it. In terms of ankles, there are a bunch of ankle stretches that are quite nice. And you can also tape your ankle if you feel it's fragile. You just take a band and you tape around the ankle. I don't know how severe your injury is, Maurice. Ankle injuries can really recover fast, or they can, as I said, take 6 months to recover. So worst case scenario, it might create imbalances, but if it refuses to recover, use crutches. But what I would say is, I know you're on your fitness journey as well, losing weight can really help. When I was 240 and I rolled my ankle, the ankle would just not heal. And when I lost the weight and I was to 220, it healed like this. So I would say maybe try and cut a little bit of weight and it might help. Igbo Abaziama. I always hear there is a risk of knee problems from doing too much quad work, but is this a possibility if there is too much hamstring work and neglecting the quads? So, this is a vast question, it's a good question. I personally think that the issue is not that there is too much quad work, rather there is not enough hamstring work. I think that's the real truth about it, because training your quad shouldn't create a knee injury, because the muscle of the quad is what is activated when you bend the knee. So it's what is actually taking workload off of the knee. What could be possible is that in the process of building the quad, the balance between the muscular fatigue and the tendon fatigue, the structural fatigue, is skewed, and your tendon is fatigued more. And because tendons have less blood flow, they recover slower. So you end up in a situation where the muscle could be fully recovered, but the knee isn't. And now it's a catch-22 because the knee hurts, you can't do your squats, so the muscle atrophies and the knee hurts forever. I've had that situation happen to me. In terms of reversing the problem, can you get injured if you get too much hamstring and not enough quads? Yes, because it's the same logic. Let's say you don't have enough quads. Well, you do your knee flexion now. What's supporting the knee is mostly the quads, so you can also get snapped up. This is why this black and white thinking about shoulder injuries are caused by a dominant front delt. Knee injuries are caused by a quad dominance. It's an incomplete understanding of the truth. Injuries are caused by poor technique, poor volume and intensity management, and muscle weakness overall. You don't want any body part to be weak. That being said, I would advise people, for the most part, to do much more hamstring work than they do knee flexions. So more hip hinge than knee flexions in your training. Why? Because you will find that for most people, your quad is going to be dominant no matter what you do. I know very few people who have dominant hamstrings and small quads. So because we know that most natural lifters are going to end up with that weak point and strong point relationship, might as well, try and prevent it from happening. I personally was someone who had dominant quads and no hamstrings. I'm starting to slowly correct that. Andrew asks, best approach to rehabbing the glutes. Still got pinching on the top of my insertion and my deadlift is at 50%. There's a lot of layers of muscle and tissue down there. Yes. So glute injuries are quite annoying. The thing with that muscle group is that it's a very strong muscle group. It's a very big muscle group. But it can get injured, and the worst you can do is you can tear a glute. That's possible. It's rare, but it's possible. So I'm not going to go too much into it, but basically the reason for those injuries usually is because you're doing a deadlift or a squat, usually people injure their glutes on the deadlift for some reason, and your technique is relying too much on the glutes, meaning that the posterior chain and the quads don't work enough. For the squat, the way I've seen people hurt their glutes is they try to remain too vertical and they don't hip hinge into the movement. So the hamstring never gets stretched and loaded. And when they get at the bottom, the glute gets recruited all at once, meaning that the quads do the work and then suddenly the quads do nothing anymore. They're at the bottom of the lift, the quads are stretched but deloaded because of the leverage, and the glutes have to push them up, and that's when they get injured. For the deadlift, I don't really have an explanation. Some people hurt their hamstring on the deadlift, hurt their glutes on the deadlifts. I don't really know why. If someone knows, you can let us know in the comments. In terms of rehabbing the glutes, you will of course avoid the movement that injured the glute in the first place, at least for the time being. What you want is you want to find movements that are going to help you work the glute and avoid any pain. Good movements for the glutes are hip thrusts, glute bridges. You can do some back hyperextension for the glutes. All of these should be non-intrusive and low intensity enough that it's not going to really hurt. And you tell me your deadlift is at 50%, this also shows to me that you are peeling after your deadlift. You really want to get back to your top level strength. Give it a rest. You're injured. So for the time being, strength is on the side, muscle gain is on the side. You will eventually get back to it and you'll get back stronger and bigger, but it'll take some time. What you can do for the glute as well, as you said, it's a big muscle, so it's tough, but if you have a lacrosse ball and rolling around on it helps, you can try that. Since you have some pinching at the top of the insertion, I don't know if you tore the glute of the bone. I don't know if that requires surgery or not. If you didn't, it might just be tendonitis. It might just be some scar tissue or something. So in this case, some stretches might be in order. And the best way to stretch the glute is Romanian deadlift and good mornings. Do them with low weight, of course, with a slow negative. You want to really feel the stretch. That also is going to help you pinpoint the area of the range of motion that triggers the pain in the glute. And once you figure that out, it can help. And just as I said before with the guy that had an issue with his hip, we're going to have to find a way for you to do your squat and deadlift and to reduce the risk of injury. So when you get back into those lifts and you start to slowly build up again, I would say play with your form. When you are in your low intensity ranges and the relative and even absolute intensity that you apply to the training is enough that you can play with the weight because it's baby weight, that's when you actually can shift your stance, shift your torso angle, etc., etc. You won't be able to do that with high intensity work. Quite Monkey asks, how to fix muscle fibers from twitching? It occurs mainly in my front delt and side delt. Yes, muscle twitching is quite frequent. You don't have to worry about that. It's not dangerous. You are most likely either lacking in magnesium or potassium. So I would say eat a banana and you should feel better. You could also be dehydrated. But sometimes, the muscles twitch and there's no real reason. Let's see if we can finish this. Dan Bart asks, I have both shoulders post-surgery, which nowadays tends to ring face pulls, I think, limits me in only two things. He can't progress on the bench that well, and he feels pain and he can't feel the muscle well during any type of flies. Okay. So, as for the bench, yes, sadly, horizontal presses, it's a great movement. It's also the movement that puts the more tax on the shoulders. So, most people who have had surgery on their shoulders can't even bench. So what I would say for you is, get a slingshot, focus on doing close grip bench, focus on doing post bench, focus on doing spoto press. Everything that is not going to be a touch and go bench could help you with progression. If you find that push-ups are better for the shoulders and the chest, do them. I know that we're attached to the bench, but after your surgery, you might have to rethink the way you approach that type of training. In terms of flies, if they hurt, and if you feel the forearms and shoulders take over, it could be many reasons. If they hurt, stop doing them first off. You don't want to mess up your shoulders. try them standing up. Try doing flies with a band standing up, and you use your arms that are supinated and you bring them up like this. See if you fold the chest this way. And if you do fold the chest this way, guess what? You can do that movement with dumbbells. It's the same thing. So give it a try. But it's true that you won't get that open stretch of the chest that you get with flies. What you can do, however, if your shoulders can take it, you can do ring push-ups. In my opinion, they offer the same benefits. Quite Monkey asks, how do you make your shoulders less tight? There is in the injury prevention playlist a strength restoration called, if I am not mistaken, the strength restoration I think it's S3. Yes, it's the S3. That's quite good for that, so give it a try. But basically the reason why your shoulders are tight is either that your scapular belt is too tight or that the front delt is too developed. So you're either like this or you're like this. What you need in this case is weighted stretch. You need to do more face pulls as well. Okay, and then there are a few questions that I'm going to read out loud because if people have answers in the comments, it's great, they could answer. But as a rule of thumb, if what I see is out of my expertise or if it looks severe and related to surgery, I don't want to give you advice because I don't want to misguide you. So Mo So asks, any advice for scapular dyskinesis? I don't know. Shade says, I had surgery on my hip 1 year ago from a torn labrum. Long story short, he was misdiagnosed. And the real thing he had was sports hernia, which got worse. And now the hip joint feels completely messed up. And apparently the hernias feel better. He asked for joint supplements. As for you, I don't know what to tell you if they messed up your hip. Do the things that I told the other guy with the hip problem. In terms of supplements I take for the joints, MSM powder is quite nice. MB asks, I experienced coccyx lower back pain on occasion when deadlifting despite having a neutral back and not having my hips shoot up. I don't really know why. The coccyx and the lower back pain, if it's located in between the glutes, and it's the area I think about where it's just up where the glutes meet. I sometimes had that too. I never fixed it, it just went away. I have no idea why. Sir asks, I have a collarbone injury. It feels like it moves out of place, pops, and I have pain. That's not normal. And also I have elbow pain if I fully extend my arm fast like a jump shot. A sleeve helps, but it doesn't eliminate it. So the elbow sounds like tendonitis, which I inserted in the last video. And as far as the collarbone injury, that's strange that your collarbone moves. I don't know what to say about that. If anyone has experience with collarbone injuries, let me know in the comments and let us help this community feel better and prevent injury in the long run. We're going to stop here. Again, any questions you might have about the injuries you're dealing with, I will answer in the next injury Q&A. Thank you for watching.